When you hear FIRE and financially independent, retire early. Oh, I love my job. I don't want to quit, so I'm not going to become financially independent. I've had some pretty awful jobs. Every morning you wake up and you're like, oh, I have to go to work. Your job may not stay amazing forever. Do you think everyone wants to retire early and never work again? Wrong. Today we are speaking with Tiamo Wright, a real estate investor based out of North Carolina, and oh yeah, a senior product manager here at BiggerPockets. Tiamo is obsessed with talking about investment strategies and working towards financial independence, but has absolutely zero interest in retiring early. Does that sound like anybody else we know? Like maybe me? You know, when you work at BiggerPockets, it's kind of like the most awesome job in the world, so you don't really want to quit. Today, we are going to be talking about why the FIRE movement isn't for her and why it might not be a fit for you either. Tiamo, I am so excited to talk to you today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
When did you discover FIRE and why isn't it a totally perfect fit? What is it about the RE part that doesn't make it worth it for you?
So what I tell everybody is I made every mistake known to man. I lived in expensive apartments. I had the nice coach purses. I drove a brand new Audi. I made every dumb choice. And then I read this ridiculous book called Set for Life. And I was starting a financial women's group where we were learning about different businesses, different ways to invest. And it just kept coming back to money. We didn't talk about money. We didn't talk about our salaries. And we created this environment where, hey, we're going to chat about money. It's going to be kind of a nice thing that we do. And as soon as I started reading some of the things that were out there, I was like, wait a second, what am I doing? I'm spending money on things that don't matter. They don't bring me joy. It doesn't get me to the end goal of what I'm looking for. And then I learned about FIRE and I was like, oh yeah, I want opportunity. I always say rejecting expectations is my FIRE. The freedom in rejecting expectations of, do you want to move somewhere new? Do you want to, travel forever? Do you want to, whatever you might want to do? What is that particular thing? But I don't believe in the FIRE movement in, I'm going to eat ramen noodles for the next 10 years of my life. And at the end of that, what's the output? I've had, sadly, a lot of friends pass away in their early 30s that they didn't have that next phase of their life. So are we being thoughtful in the way we're living today, but doing really, really cool things that maybe we live to 110, and with my luck, I will.
Well, I certainly hope that you do live to 110.
That sounds really old.
Let's take that part out of that. You know what? It's better than the alternative. Is there anything about the FI movement that you do agree with?
I think a lot of people in the conversations are talking about, really, most of them aren't even retiring. Some of the great books that I've read, some of the great podcasts I've listened to, people aren't looking to retire. They're looking to do the thing that they'd rather do. So that a lot of them talk about those soul-sucking corporate jobs that they go in day out and they don't enjoy. I have worked at a company that I quit with no backup job because I made sure that I was set up for success in that manner. That's what I do agree with. I think it's how do you want to spend your time, and is the time with your friends, your family, your loved ones, is your time being used in the best way? And so I really, really agree with that.
There's this phrase, it's spending money you don't have to buy things you don't want to impress people you don't like. I've heard this phrase and, something similar to that.
Yep.
The FIRE movement to me is like anti that.
Yes.
It's not necessarily about saving up every dime you can for no reason. It's so you can then stop working at this job that sucks the soul out of your body. When you hear FIRE and in financially independent, retire early. Oh, I love my job. I don't want to quit, so I'm not going to become financially independent. Okay, that's, in the moment, maybe that's a okay choice, but your job may not stay amazing forever. My sister is a teacher, and for the longest time, she didn't understand this FIRE movement at all. And then she got a new principal and she said, I get it now. I get why somebody might want to have options.
Yeah. And I think to your point too, it's this concept of so early in my life, the best brand name cars, the best brand name clothes, that was really important to me. I have no idea where these concepts came from, but I wanted to eat at the nice restaurants, live in the nice downtown apartment, have the nice car, look the nice part. And that was just, it is this middle class, trickery that you think that, oh, if I get this particular shirt, that makes me feel special. And none of those things are important to me. I love travel. I love experiences. I love spending time with people. I love good beer, good wine. That matters to me. But when you're younger, you don't know that. And you don't know because you're not surrounding yourself with people that think differently. And so I went to a private university. People had money. I assumed that everyone had the same financial background. You don't know these things yet. And so I think that was the interesting thing too, is when you learn, you spend all of the money you want. If you love really fast cars, buy those. But you can't buy all of the things and those fast cars too. And so that's what I think that the FIRE movement taught me, is spend really intelligently on the things that you really care about. Then you'll live a really much more satisfying life than looking at the Joneses and trying to keep up with those people.
Yeah, you just said something that I thought was so important. You're not you're doing this because you're not surrounding yourself with people who think differently. And something that is so helpful to keep you on this path to financial independence is making FI friends, making people who have similar mindsets. It can help you stay on the right path to the same, the financial independence path.
But even once you get more comfortable, this is important to me. It doesn't have to be important to all of my friends. And when you get more comfortable with that concept, I think I kind of like the challenge of other people asking me questions. I don't own a car. And people think that's the craziest thing. When I lived in Denver, Colorado, it was really nice to have Ubers and drive around. I lived in Minneapolis, San Diego, all these places that were really easy to not own a car. I live outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. It is the burbs. I've never lived in the burbs before. And so not having a mode of transportation that I rely on every single day, my friends think I'm do you not make enough money? You have a job, right? Why don't you own a car? and it's funny when you those little changes, but 100% yes, surround yourself with people that are thinking like you. But I almost kind of like the oddity where people are like, what is wrong with you? Like, why do you think this way? Because it challenges them. They think differently. It's like, wait a second, why do you do that? What's the benefit to you? And so then we get to talk about, money.
I love your thinking, and I'm going to say that it takes a strong person to be able to stand up for what they believe in. And money is so taboo, and it's so embarrassing, and it's so politically incorrect to talk about. So if you're not looking to retire early, why is financial independence so important to you?
Like I mentioned, I had a few friends that had passed away in their early 30s. And I joke that I live you only live once YOLO life, all the way to the I'm going to live for eternity. And I want to make sure when I do, I'm comfortable in that position. So I think just the optionality is so important to me. And I think that by creating space where if tomorrow I want to move to North Carolina, I can do so. My husband and I both make good incomes. We want to make sure that we have, if one of us wants to leave our job, he's way more talented. I love working. I could work all the time. It's been a problem of mine ever since the job I first started. Is like, you want more hours? Great. But we're not paying you overtime. But I could solve more problems if I work more hours. It's amazing to me. I don't have fun hobbies like he does. I like to read business books. He likes motorcycles and adventures and really cool things. It's like, that guy's not meant to live at a corporate job. He's not meant to live behind a computer. And so that optionality, when he says, in a few years, I want to be able to tinker on motorcycles, or I want to be able to, be a full-time dog dad. Great, let's do that. And so that optionality to me is much more important, that we can create that choice if we want to take that option. And several years, like we said, I've moved to so many different states and done so many different things, like recently went back to school, is like, we have the money to make those options happen when we say yes, that we want to take that opportunity.
I love that. It's just options. When you get money out of the way, you've set yourself up for life. When you're set for life, then whatever you want to do, you don't have to worry about the 40 hours a week that you're working, or 50 or 60 or whatever. You can go back to school. You can become a full-time dog dad. You can do whatever you want because you have set yourself up to be comfortable. And I feel so snotty saying this, but it's not that difficult to spend less than you earn when you're earning a good salary. It's very difficult when you're earning, minimum wage and in a high cost of living area. But there's so many ways to generate income in this day and age. It just seems like, why wouldn't you set yourself up for financial independence so then you can continue the job that you love, or you can quit the job that sucks your soul out?
Yeah. And why I'm so passionate about talking about money now is because in my early 20s, making all of the mistakes, my net worth was negative for a very, very, very long time. I'd use mattresses from friends' houses. Like, I was the poorest of the poor. And to be able to be where I am now is so insane to me. And have that, we have a positive net worth? Like, wait a second. And I remember my niece called me and she goes, she needed to borrow a few $100s. And she didn't even ask to borrow a few $100s. She was describing her situation that she was in. She went to the doctor. They were going to ask her for all this money, and her insurance didn't kick in for her new job. And I think it was like 2 or 3 days away. So close to getting insurance at your job that you got sick beforehand. And she is a hot mess, just crying, 22. She's very young, trying to figure out life. And I was trying to explain to her, oh my gosh, I've been there. I remember $200 was the end all be all. It seemed like you might as well have asked me for $2 million because I didn't have 200 or 2 million. And that idea now to say, oh yeah, well, I got it. You want me to send you 200, 2,000? Like, what are you looking for? Just to have a little bit of that flexibility. And I think every year over year, it's going to evolve, to my understanding of money. But just, I remember that so vividly of like, oh, but now, even now, it's like, I have a great job. It's like, I bartended on the side. I've babysat. Like, there's nothing too big or too small for me to do to make ends meet. And then to evolve it. And even now, it's like $5 extra. Like, I'll take $5 extra. There's always something I could do with that money.
There's always something you could do with that money. There's no such thing as extra money. It always has a plan. Should always have a plan. So what has your financial journey been like to become financially independent? You mentioned several mistakes in your 20s. And by the way, you don't hold the patent on that. I also made copious mistakes in my 20s, as did most people watching right now.
So I would say every year I made one mistake and learned one big lesson. I think our biggest mistake, first house, bought it with a 401k, with money from the 401k, not as a loan. Not as a loan. The
What?
tax man knocked on my door and said, excuse me, you owe us not only the money, the interest. You owe interest on the money that you borrowed and the penalty. Here I am finally saving up my pennies to get that first home. So excited. And I was like, oh gosh. So every year, again, bad choices, most expensive downtown apartments at, oh, look at me, guys. I live downtown. Isn't this nice? All of my money goes into that. I joke that, my first Coach bag that I could afford on my own, I got a Coach bag that was really popular when I was in college. And then I put my non-money in it. Like, I had an empty wallet to put inside this purse, and I'm walking around the mall like, look at me. I don't know if you know, I have a sweet bag. It's like, there's no money in this bag. I'm so poor. What was I thinking? Every year I learn a little bit more. Finally, I started trying to educate myself about investing. I remember the company I worked at, the first startup I had worked at, told me to do a 401k. The woman in HR goes, it's free money. Ma'am, I have so many student loans. This is not free money. I can't afford $1. What are you thinking? What are you talking about? I remember how I thought she was so entitled to say, just go ahead and do this. I'm like, I'm trying to live. I'm trying to pay off my student loans. I'm trying to, ride my skateboard to and from work. That's how I had no car at the time. I'm trying to figure it out. And just to evolve from that to at 30s, I started realizing, like, why am I not buying a house? Why am I not? We got to fix and flip. We're gonna fix it. We're gonna have a roommate move in with us and really save some money. Why am I driving an expensive car? If you do the math, I can actually bike to work. My house is pretty close to my office. Let's try that. And worst case scenario, get another car later on if it doesn't work. So I started making much more thoughtful plans for where my money went and budgeting. I think that was the best thing I've ever done, is actually looking, how do I spend money? I don't know. I on the weekends I'd wait tables. Well, that's $100 of cash in. I can spend $100 in cash. No, that's not how it works, but it felt that's how it works. So I just started making more choices on, how do I want to intentionally spend my money? Do I know where the money's coming and going? And what's the future state goal-wise that we want to get to? And every year we have a new goal and a new thing that we're focusing on. Again, mistakes and lessons, but I got there somehow. And still, every year I have way more to learn, of course.
Everybody qualifies it differently, but what does financially independent mean to you, especially since you're not looking to retire early? Is this like a specific number? Is it a savings rate?
Yeah. So what we've talked about in the past, just because my husband is a talented human and wants to do more things than just work at his great corporate job, even though he loves a corporate job, don't tell his boss. But the concept would be that we would replace his income fully. And so right now we just have the one long-term rental and then external investment. So the idea is, where do we get to a point where we could ensure that we live the same lifestyle that we have now without him having to work? And so that's our one. And then the ultimate would be obviously replacing both of our incomes. But what we talked about is, regardless, he would have some type of a part-time job. We just don't want to factor any of that money in case that's something that he chooses not to do.
No, that's a really good point. If he's thinking about working a part-time job, but then may not want to commit to it, replacing his entire income right now is great because then you just have more of a buffer if he is working for a little bit.
Yep, exactly.
Well, you're also a real estate investor. How does that play into your savings goals and ultimately into your financial independence definition?
How it factored in the last year. So we had bought this house outside of Charlotte, and it's on a lake, or lake adjacent. We're 0.2 miles from the end of the street is where the lake is. And so initially we were talking about it'd be a second home that we would Airbnb. And just 3 weeks after we closed on the house, my husband got a job offer out here, which is just a really weird turn of events that ended up happening. So we said, let's reverse this. Instead of having a short-term rental on the lake, let's move into that house and we'll rent the house in Denver for long-term and see how that goes. In the past, we had done traveling nurses, which had gone really well. And we've always had roommates. And as soon as I learned about why I'm possibly not renting out rooms, I started having roommates, moved into the traveling nurses, and then the long-term rental. We have the world's best tenants the last 2.5 years, which has been amazing. And so that has been our next one. And my big thing is I do want cash flow. This year alone, we spent $15,000 in repairs of our rental. So I want to make sure there's some cash flow when things pop up that we are thinking about that. Appreciation's wonderful. But so one of the things we've been looking at is the Charlotte market for another long-term rental. And I'm telling you, it is still a very hot market in Charlotte. We've lost out in several deals going over asking still. And it's funny just how complicated where some of these numbers just don't make sense right now. And you add if you paid in cash, it would make far more sense. If you're putting 25% down, it's not making quite as much sense. So one of the things I do want to add some more rentals to our portfolio. I have friends that have really great experiences and some that don't. And so I am very particular about making sure the numbers make sense to me. And I double check them, triple check them. And so maybe that's why we only have one rental right now because of that.
You know what? You could own 57 rentals that don't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
There's a reason that you only have one rental right now. And I think that in this time period, the way that you're approaching it is the best way to approach it. Unless you just are sitting on a pile of $10 million in cash and can cover the expenses that pop up, it doesn't make sense to jump in and hope things work. It makes sense to run the numbers, run them again, triple check them, and run them ultra conservatively.
Yes. And that's the number of friends that I have that even before outside of BiggerPockets that have been investors and own a lot of short-term rentals, a lot of the numbers that they had run had such strong years, and they ran them over those strong years. They never thought about what could happen. And that I'm seeing them hurt the most. And even talking to other folks where they said, oh, I have 15 properties, 15 doors. Okay, your 15 doors are the same revenue that I'm making on one door. So to me, that balance is a little bit different. So I do think it's always, do whatever makes you feel comfortable, high risk, high reward. I know some people are a bit more willing to get there, but I want my nest egg to go in different directions. If it's not going to be in a real estate, I have other ideas that I want to implement that money, and I want to make sure that it's the smartest choice for me not to regret that choice in a few years.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And, your job as an investor is to do everything you can to protect your investment, to protect that money and to help it grow. Why isn't retiring early the right path? What are your fears around that? And maybe fears isn't the right word, but what are your hesitations around retiring early?
I don't have any cool hobbies. That's my thing. Like I snowboard, I run. We just did a half Ironman. I'm very goal oriented. So if you're like, hey, Tiamo, read 100 books this year or go run a marathon, I will do it, no problem. But I don't have a super every day I want to wake up and knit or every day I want to go out and ride my dirt bike. My husband has 50 hobbies, no joke. That during COVID, he's like, so I learned to make leather wallets, and then I'm also riding my dirt bike, and I'm also taking aerial yoga. You're like, what? How is this possible? But I don't have any hobbies. And the thing that I like is I sincerely like solving problems. Not joking, it's insane. I like solving problems, and I like every single day getting in there. And my old coworkers you're not saving lives here doing your job, right? You're building websites. You're not saving lives. Let's be honest here. But I love that. I get passionate to wake up, even the frustrating days, this day sucks or this problem sucked, something's challenging. I love that. And so I think for me, my brain can't even, I would love to, I was looking at coffee shops for a while. I'd love to run a small business. I opened a coffee shop in the past. I opened co-working spaces. I used to do commercial, real estate, and a little bit of everything. I love that. if I could work more, I would. If I could work on the weekends, I was bartending at a local, making $5 an hour at the local bar here in town, just because I love working. I love like being on. I love challenging or chatting with people while solving problems. That's my thing. So I worry that the retire early, it doesn't give me that kind of motivation that I don't have that thing on the side that I like, oh, I'd love to, dirt bike all day. I don't have that thing. And so for me, when people say retire, I'm like, oh gosh, like just the thought of it is so negative, which is funny because I think there's so much more you could be doing with your time. You could be, giving back more to nonprofits. You could be doing these other things. My brain's not there yet. And I'm sure there will be a point where I get there. But right now it's like, oh, no, I have like these other things I want to solve.
Okay, that's valid. I will say that I know a lot of early retirees and none of them are just like sitting around doing nothing. They're doing things. They're just doing things that they want to do as opposed to not being able to do them because they have a job. But I hear what you're saying. And more importantly, you've thought about this. You've given this thought. It isn't just, well, I like my job, so I'm not going to quit. So we've talked about real estate as one of your investment or asset classes. What else are you investing in? And how did you determine or decide on those specific asset classes?
So right now we do VTASX on Fidelity externally, 401k, pension, all kind of the, what does Scott call it, the middle class trap? I'm in the middle class trap as far as my 401ks, and both my husband and I have a pension from former companies. And so retirement, we look pretty good, but then just as far as Fidelity, just basic high risk at my age, I'm more open to, what is the word I'm looking for? It's based on my age.
Volatility.
When you, in Fidelity, where it lets you select it based on.
Oh, yeah. What is that called? The target date fund.
Target date fund. That's exactly. So I do that. And then right now what we do, so we've been every year we save up kind of a chunk of money and decide what we're doing with that. We had a place in Colorado. We renovated a 1,700 square foot basement, turned it into bedrooms, bathrooms, all that for renting it out. Then we moved into this house. We saved up our money for the down payment. So every year we kind of take a big chunk of money and say, are we buying? What is that thing that we're doing with that? So this is now for 2024, what are we doing with that next dollar amount? And so, yeah, the biggest thing that I would like to do is either one more rental for 2024, or the thing that we're looking at is buying a small business. And I think that I'm not the only person I talk to. I'm in the same kind of group of people that are interested in something that not exactly passive, but something that you can invest. You can still have your full-time job. You can invest in that particular thing, and then not have to be in the business every single day when you're actually running it. So, for me, the coffee shop, I love the coffee shop. I just love a place where you can kind of bring your community and people together. Not a huge revenue maker, but later on, if my husband wanted to work within the coffee shop or something like that, you have to be a little bit more money heavy. So right now, the business is kind of the most interesting future investment that I'm looking at.
Being a business owner is the right next step for you. It seems like a wonderful use of your skills. It seems like a wonderful way for you to make money because you have a financial foundation that will cushion any shocks along the way,
yep,
as well as taking advantage of all of the things that you bring to the table already.
Great, let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, so what is your biggest financial tip for someone on their journey to financial independence?
I would say that two things I'm going to say. One, stop looking at everyone around you, because if they're leading the life that you do not want, you never know what's behind the scenes. But just stop looking at those people, because my friends that drive the nicest cars, that have the nicest clothes, they are the most financially in debt. They are having a lot of other struggles. And until you go on vacations with the same people, then all of a sudden you realize that they're still paying off their vacations from 2 vacations ago. That's really sad to see. And so I'd say stop looking at those other folks. And then also give yourself a budget. And it's funny, I have some friends that are very, very wealthy, and they're like, oh, I even budget. And I think it's funny because when people think about budgeting, they're like, oh, it's, what a boring thing. But it's just knowing where your money is coming in and where it's going and giving it a place to go. And I think that if you don't dedicate where you want it to go, you'll find a spot for it. That drink out, that craft brewery will come to you, I promise. And so knowing where the actual money is going, so then you can make an intentional decision of, I have 10 extra dollars. Do I want to invest? Do I want to go out and have a great beer? Whatever it might be. But if you're intentional about it, that has profoundly helped me actually have more money later on because I want to know where the money is going.
Tiamo, thank you so much for your time today. This was so much fun. It's always a good time chatting with you. Is there any place that the audience can connect with you?
On the BiggerPockets website.
Are you ready to pursue your financial freedom? Real estate can be a great way to grow wealth, but you need to be educated. And I just so happen to know a place you can go to get that education. BiggerPockets.com. BiggerPockets.com has an enormous array of resources, and you can take your investing education to the next level by going pro today. Pro gives you the tools and resources you need so you can be confident in this market. Things like calculator reports to assess deals and estimate rents, free lease agreements for all 50 states, plus Washington, D.C., and pro-specific content so you can stay up to speed in today's ever-changing market. There's also no risk. Your pro membership comes with a money-back guarantee. Go to BiggerPockets.com/GoPro today and enter the code PROFIRE, PROFIRE, to receive 20% off your first year's membership. Take the next step. Take action today. If you like this video, please click the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more videos with inspiring fire stories just like Tiamo's. This is Mindy Jensen signing off.